The lamp in the hallway was always slightly crooked, an old quirk of their place, the kind of imperfection he'd stopped noticing years ago. But tonight, it stood straight. Too straight. Centered perfectly on the console table beneath the mirror, like someone had adjusted it with deliberate care. He paused mid-step. The keys in his hand clinked against his palm, but he didn't move to set them down. The hallway was dim, only the faint blue flicker of the living room TV cast dancing shadows through the archway. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of stillness that didn't feel earned. He stood there, blinking, listening to the silence stretch. He hadn't expected her to be home yet, late meeting, or something like that, but the front door wasn't locked, and the thermostat had been changed. 2 degrees warmer. She hated it warmer. Always claimed it made her feel sluggish. And yet here it was, the heat creeping in, subtle but sure. Not enough to sweat. Just enough to unsettle. He walked past the hallway, past the coat hooks and the shoe rack, past the closed door of the guest bedroom they never used. He wasn't searching, not yet. His body moved through the house like a shadow, quiet and observing. The living room, same as ever. Throw pillows fluffed. Remote on the coffee table, perfectly parallel to the edge. Wine glass half full. Red. Merlot. She drank white. Always white. Said red gave her migraines. He'd heard her say it 100 times to friends, to waiters, to him. He picked up the glass and stared at the smudged lipstick on the rim. Not her shade. Deeper, darker. He placed it back down slowly. Still, nothing loud. Nothing definitive. Just off. He crossed to the kitchen. The light over the sink was on, humming faintly. A single plate in the drying rack, square and navy blue, from the set her sister had given them last Christmas. They never used that set. Said it was too heavy. He picked up the fork resting beside it. No crumbs. Just rinsed. Too clean. His eyes flicked to the trash. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until he saw the paper towel folded, not crumpled. Placed neatly at the top of the bin like someone had paused mid-clean and changed their mind. Then he saw it. On the edge of the countertop, nearly hidden by the fruit bowl, lay a necklace. Thin, delicate, almost invisible against the marble. A small charm hung from it, a lowercase a in a soft gold script. His wife's name was Rebecca. He didn't touch it. Didn't need to. He stood there, letting the silence fill in the blanks. The living room TV played something, a muted comedy laugh track, tinny and distant. The scent in the air was warm, a trace of cinnamon and coconut. Not her. And not a candle they owned. He looked at the base of the staircase. Her heels were gone. But her sister's raincoat, the green one with the torn inner lining, was slung carelessly over the banister, like it belonged there. Still no sound upstairs. He walked back to the hallway. The lamp caught his eye again. Too perfect. Too considered. He crouched down and tilted it back the way it used to be, slightly off, leaning left, like it had grown tired of standing straight. It looked more honest that way. He stared at it for a long moment. He didn't go upstairs. Didn't open doors. Didn't call out names. There was no confrontation. No fury. Only the click of the front door latch behind him and the weight of a house that had already told him everything he needed to know. He stepped outside into the cold air, his breath visible for the first time in weeks. And for the first time in what felt like years, he smiled. Just a little. A single, mirthless thing. The kind you make when you hear the punchline of a joke you already knew was coming. The following weeks unfolded like a painting slowly fading under sunlight. Details remained, but the warmth bled out. She was still there, physically. Still cooked dinner on Tuesdays, still kissed his cheek in the morning like it meant something. But the kiss came before eye contact now, as if following a script. Her laugh came half a second too late, her touch too light, like she was careful not to leave a fingerprint. She spoke more about personal space and mental clarity. Nothing aggressive. All in soft tones, like she was inviting him to nod along with her slow retreat. He tried to believe it was nothing. That it was just the seasons shifting, that people change, and marriage bends with them. He told himself love wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet. Gentle. Grown up. But then there was the phone. The same phone that used to lie face up on the nightstand, screen glowing idly while she read beside him. Now it slept under her pillow, buzzed silently in the morning, and disappeared with her into the bathroom. She said she needed her headspace, that scrolling Instagram in the morning made her feel more balanced. He watched without watching. Noticing without asking. Because asking would mean admitting he didn't believe her. And he wasn't ready to say it out loud. At dinner, she started talking about starting yoga again. Or maybe Pilates. She wasn't sure. She said she needed something that recentered her. She smiled as she said it, chopping carrots with a rhythm too mechanical, too perfect. He asked if she wanted company he could try a beginner class. Her eyes flicked up, then down, like he'd said something absurd. "That's kind of my time," she said gently, as if reminding a child not to follow her into the bathroom. He nodded. Of course. Everyone needed their time. That night she was humming. He couldn't place the tune. Something upbeat. Something teenage. He stood in the hallway and watched her reflection in the bathroom mirror, her head tilted, mascara once steady in her hand. She was going out. She looked too perfect for a Wednesday. "Drinks with the girls," she said, brushing lip gloss on with surgeon precision. "You remember Anna, right?" He did. But he also remembered that Anna moved to Denver 6 months ago. He didn't ask. Just smiled, said have fun, and watched the front door close behind her. It wasn't the lie that got to him. It was how smooth it had become in her mouth. She started forgetting things. His mother's birthday. The tea she left steeping until it went cold. His presentation, which she used to mark on the calendar in red. She still said, "I love you," but not when it mattered. She said it while reaching for her bag, keys in hand, or mid-scroll on her phone, never once looking up. Her voice was bright, practiced, like a voicemail greeting that never changed. Once, he came home early from work. She wasn't expecting him. The house was still, unusually warm again. Her coat was on the back of the chair. She was upstairs. He heard water running. No voices. No footsteps. But her scent lingered in the air, cloying and unfamiliar, like something sampled in a boutique rather than chosen. It wasn't hers. Not the one he knew. The one he bought her 2 Christmases ago after she sighed over it in a magazine. He walked past the staircase and into the kitchen. His eyes landed on her phone, sitting on the counter. Face down. That was new. He hesitated, fingers hovering. Then he turned it over. Locked. It hadn't been locked before. He knew that for certain. They'd both said it once, if you have nothing to hide, why bother? He placed it back down exactly how he found it. That night, she was glowing. Hair still damp from her bath, skin flushed, legs tucked under her on the couch. She asked him about his day. Listened. Nodded. Smiled at all the right times. But her eyes never met his for more than 2 seconds. And when they did, they looked just past him. It was a Friday when the false ending came. He was walking the dog past the small park near the high school, the one with the broken water fountain and fading chalk art. That's when he saw it. Her car, parked along the side of the street. Alone. She'd said she was going to the co-op downtown. He stood there a long time, leash slack in his hand, as his dog sniffed at a bush. The car sat quiet. Lights off. Nothing moving inside. He walked past it slowly. Glanced through the window. Empty. The seatbelt was still twisted from where she always tucked it behind her hip. He looked around the street. Houses. A few people in the distance. A man walking a stroller. Nothing unusual. Nothing he could hold in his hands. When she came home later that night, she handed him a paper bag. "They had your almond milk," she said, proud of herself. Finally. He stared at the bag. It was from a different store. He said nothing. That night, he lay beside her as she drifted off, watching her face go slack with sleep. Her back to him. Her breath steady. But he didn't touch her. He just watched. And we watched with him. It happened on a Saturday, the kind of soft, overcast morning that made everything feel slow and distant. She was out at a wellness workshop she'd mentioned in passing the night before, said it was last minute, that she'd carpool with some girls from the studio. She hadn't offered names. He hadn't asked. By then, he didn't need names, he just needed confirmation. Not suspicion. Not implication. Proof. And it arrived, not as a phone call or a message, but as a printout. From the home printer. Still warm, curled slightly at the edges from the feed tray. He hadn't been looking for it. He was just replacing the ink cartridge. It had been running dry for weeks. When the printer blinked to life, it coughed out a single page, like it had been holding its breath. One page. A yoga class schedule. Except it wasn't for her studio. And it wasn't for her. His name was on the form. His. Emergency contact. Husband. His number. His email. But the name at the top was not hers. Same last name, though. A woman he'd never heard of. Then the second detail, an appointment reminder tucked below the header, private partner session, intimacy rebuilding. Dated 3 days prior. The instructor's name meant nothing to him. But the form did. It was registered under his insurance. He logged into the health portal, something she never touched. The name appeared again. Multiple sessions. All billed. All tied to their shared plan. And one of them, just one, Listed a note. Couples therapy referral declined. Client declined to include spouse. The pieces didn't just click. They slammed together, like a filing cabinet tipped off a shelf. He went still. There was no breath, no tightening of the chest. Just a clean, sharp line slicing through everything. She was using him. His name. His coverage. His home. Not to rebuild their intimacy, but someone else's. She'd created a version of him on paper. Just enough to pass. Just enough to stay funded, but not enough to exist in her actual world. He stared at the page for a long time. No rage. No heartbreak. Those had already been exhausted, slowly bled out over months of vague smiles and half-truths. What he felt now wasn't pain, it was logistics. Planning. War. She thought he was soft. Safe. Predictable. The kind of man who'd bury doubt with patience. And for a time, he was. But now he was something else. He took the paper, folded it once, then again, and slipped it into the old book safe on the top shelf of his office, beside tax returns and the letter from his father he never read. Then he opened his laptop. Not to confront. Not to confess. To copy. To archive. Every shared document. Every financial record. Every insurance form, loan, joint signature. He backed it all up. Quietly. Precisely. Her laptop sat on the kitchen counter, as always, plugged in, lid closed. He opened it. She hadn't changed the password. Of course not. She didn't think she needed to. Inside, folders. One marked invoices. He opened it. Not hers. His. Photos of his ID. His W-2s. Scanned bank statements. Even a PDF of his signature. The pieces didn't just align, they were built that way. He wasn't a husband. He was infrastructure. A resource. A platform she moved across to support the life she really wanted, just one room over, just out of sight. He left everything as it was. Closed the lid. Walked outside. The sky was still gray, quiet. A neighbor waved from across the street. He waved back. Smiled even. But something had changed behind his eyes, something permanent. A quiet calculation. Not of loss, but of leverage. He walked back inside, wiped the keyboard, and poured himself a coffee. He didn't text her. Didn't call. He knew where she was. Knew where she'd always been. Somewhere between the story she told him and the one she lived when the door clicked shut. Let her keep lying. Let her smile and say things were better than ever. Let her kiss him like she meant it. From now on, he'd return every kiss like a signature on a document he already planned to shred. It started in the kitchen. Sunday night. She came through the door humming, keys jangling, a canvas tote slung over one shoulder like she'd just returned from a farmer's market rather than 3 hours of silence he hadn't questioned. She greeted him like always, cheerful, distracted, rehearsed. "You won't believe the deal I got on those organic mandarins," she started, unloading bags she didn't buy with her money, in a house she didn't pay for, setting them on a countertop she'd picked out using his credit card. He let her speak, let her fill the room with noise. And then, when her back was turned, he placed the printout on the kitchen island. Just one page. She didn't look at it at first, just kept unpacking. He waited for her to notice, to stop pretending. When her hand brushed the paper and her eyes locked on the heading, his name, her lie, her fingers froze. She blinked. "What's this?" Her voice already shifting, testing tones. Confused. Innocent. "Is this something for your work?" He didn't answer. She picked it up, scanned it too fast. The fake patient name. The intimacy counseling. His insurance ID number. Then her eyes did this thing, flicked left, then down, like she was buying time. I don't understand," she tried. "Why would your name be on?" He tilted his head. Not accusing. Not angry. Just letting the silence strip her bare. "Maybe they made a mistake," she said, and now she was moving, more energy, defensive. "You know how these clinics are? Some receptionist probably filed it wrong. That's not even my handwriting. You billed it to our account," he said, voice low and even. 3 times. Her mouth opened, shut. Her fingers crushed the edge of the page. "Okay. I didn't think you'd react like this. I didn't think you'd go digging through. God, are you checking my bills now?" He didn't move. Didn't speak. She shifted again. A new mask. Frustration, laced with fake calm. "Look, I was going through something. It wasn't about you. It was just, I needed space. I needed someone to talk to. You've been so distant lately, and I." He stepped forward once, closing the gap between them. She flinched before catching herself. He saw it. Space, he repeated. So you used my name, my coverage, lied about who you were, who I was. You took my signature and called it healing. She scoffed. Oh, come on. Don't act like you've been some perfect husband. Always busy, always working, always so emotionally unavailable. You think I wanted to go to therapy alone? He raised a hand, not to hit, not to silence, but to stop the performance. You weren't alone, he said. You just weren't with me. Her breath hitched. Just slightly. But it was there. And let's not pretend this was about therapy, he continued. Because therapy doesn't need a second toothbrush in someone else's bathroom. It doesn't smell like cologne you told me you hated. It doesn't come with spa receipts, late-night ride shares, or a second phone line under your maiden name. Now she stepped back. You've been spying on me? No, he said, calm slicing through her hysteria. I've been watching. There's a difference. Spying implies I didn't already know. I just waited to see how far you'd go. Her tone sharpened. You're being dramatic. I didn't do anything you can't recover from. It's not like I emptied our accounts or ran off with some stranger. He laughed once, cold and short. No, you didn't run. You stayed. And that's worse. You looked me in the eye every night and sold me fiction. You borrowed my name to build a life behind my back. I was your sponsor, your stagehand. You were the star. And the performance never included me. She folded her arms. You're twisting this, making it sound so calculated. You're not exactly innocent here. Innocent? His voice rose, not with volume, but precision. I paid the mortgage. I covered your startup debt. I gave you trust, even when your explanations made less and less sense. I ignored red flags so big they blocked the sun, because I wanted to believe the version of you I married still existed. Her face was breaking now. Cracks in the mask. I starting. Lip trembling. You used me, he said, voice quieter now. But not to cheat. That's too easy. You used me to stay respectable. To keep the image. To play both lives like you earned them. And now you're mad because I finally stopped applauding. She dropped the page. It fluttered to the floor. Please, she whispered. You're blowing this up. He didn't blink. No. You lit this fuse. I'm just watching the fire. Her shoulders slumped. The arrogance drained from her eyes. Her voice cracked on the next word. Tom. But he didn't move. Didn't comfort. Didn't scold. He just watched her unravel, quietly, methodically, the way she had unspooled his life behind closed doors. And that was the final blow. She had no more script. No more audience. Just him. And he wasn't clapping anymore. She followed him into the living room like a shadow slipping under the door, barefoot, shoulders hunched, mascara smudged not from tears but from time, hours spent building the face she thought could lie forever. Now it cracked. She didn't sit. She hovered, arms crossed, then uncrossed. Her mouth opened, then closed. You're overreacting, she said finally, as if that could rewind anything. As if a measured tone could erase the page still fluttering on the kitchen tile like a loose tooth knocked out mid-sentence. He didn't look at her. Just picked up his phone, swiped once, then set it face down on the table. I said you're overreacting, she repeated, louder now, thinner. It wasn't what you think. I didn't. He cut her off with a glance. Not a glare. Just the kind of look that said, don't lie again. Not now. Her voice faltered. Then turned bitter. You think you're so pure? So flawless? Please. You shut down years ago. You think just because you show up and pay bills that makes you a husband. Still, he didn't reply. His silence wasn't passive anymore. It was weaponized. A scalpel held steady while she kept slashing her own throat with words. You were always in control, she hissed. Always calm. Always watching. Like you were studying me. Grading me. Do you know how lonely that made me feel? Like I was living with a judge, not a partner. He leaned back slightly, still silent, still staring not at her, but through her. That's what made her break. Not the confrontation. Not the exposure. But the realization that he was already gone. Emotionally. Morally. The only thing left to burn was her dignity, and even that was kindling now. Fine, she snapped. Fine. Maybe I did lean on someone else. Maybe I needed something you couldn't give. But don't pretend I didn't love you. I did. More than you deserved. That made him blink. Once. Then came his voice, quiet, level, the voice of a surgeon making an incision. You didn't love me, he said. You loved having me. There's a difference. She scoffed, but there was no breath behind it. Just reflex. He continued. You loved what I provided. The stability. The image. You wore me like a ring. Polish me up for your friends and your therapist and whoever else got to hear the story where you were always just trying your best. She stepped back, arms tightening across her chest like she could hold herself together through sheer will. You're cruel, she whispered. You're not saying this to heal. You're saying it to hurt me. He didn't blink. No, he said. I'm saying it because you still think you're the one who gets to define this. But that ended the moment you stopped being honest and started being clever. She turned then, pacing a tight circle. So what now? You throw away a decade? Over a mistake? Her voice cracked. You think you'll find someone who puts up with your silence? Your cold routine? You'll never find someone who loves you like I did. He tilted his head, almost curious. I don't want someone who loves me like you did, he said. Because that wasn't love. That was dead. She shook her head, tears now not from sorrow, but from the acid of losing control. So you're perfect, then? You've never failed me? He raised his eyebrows slightly. I failed you by trusting you. I failed by assuming your promises were made with the same weight as mine. I failed by staying long after I stopped being seen. Her legs buckled slightly, but she didn't fall. She grabbed the back of the couch, knuckles white, breath hitching. Please, she said now, barely audible. Please don't do this. We can come back from this. We always do. And for a second, just a second, she looked like the woman he used to know, before the hollowing, before the layers of excuses and smirks and careful narratives. But the illusion didn't hold. He stood slowly, calmly, walked past her toward the front door, not to leave, but to open it. The air hit her first, cool and uninvited. Then the sound footsteps outside, neighbors' conversations drifting. They weren't alone. They never had been. And now, everyone who mattered knew the shape of what she'd broken. Her mouth opened one last time. Tom, she breathed. But he just looked at her. No hate, no pity, just a vacancy that said, I'm done making you real. Then he turned back into the house, left the door open behind him. And that silence? That silence was louder than any scream she'd ever feared. It's strange how silence grows teeth once it belongs to someone no longer afraid of you. Months passed, and whatever world she'd built behind his back had caved in on itself like wet drywall. The wellness studio dropped her after someone forwarded a few too honest screenshots. Her little support group, the ones who cheered her on for finding herself, quietly unfollowed when the truth started surfacing. The other man, the one she'd crafted this fantasy around, moved on before the ashes cooled, ghosted her the second she became inconvenient, no longer thrilling, no longer a secret worth keeping. Her LinkedIn was untouched. Her Instagram, inactive. Comments disabled. Her family, especially her mother, had gone radio silent, not out of loyalty to him, but out of sheer exhaustion. No one wanted to defend her anymore. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't even misunderstood. She was just known. And knowing her now came with consequences. The only number that still worked both ways was his, though not for long. The first text came quiet. Just his name, typed like a question. The second said, Please, I still love you. He didn't answer. Didn't even flinch. Then the call started. Blocked numbers. Burner accounts. Voicemails full of breathless panic dressed up as love. We were soulmates. You know that. You know we were meant for more than this. She used to sound so composed. So carefully rehearsed. Now her voice cracked like old glass. She showed up once, outside his building, hair pulled back too tight, makeup done like she was trying to paint the old self back on her skin. Just talk to me, she whispered when she caught sight of him. Please. But he didn't look at her with anger. Not pity. Just a kind of detached kindness, like you'd give a stranger on the subway crying into their scarf. That's all she was now. A stranger with the same memories. Her power had lived in illusion, the illusion that he needed her, that her lies were too subtle to notice, that her manipulation could pass for charm if wrapped in soft apologies. But now she was stripped of all that. Now, there was nothing left to seduce. No audience. No stage. Just a history she couldn't rewrite and a man who no longer reacted. She said his name like it was still hers to say. He looked through her. Not cruelly. Not coldly. But with the same indifference one might give to a childhood photograph found in a box, a reminder of something distant and irrelevant, no longer true. And that was the final cut, the one she couldn't prepare for, to not matter. Because after all the lies, the emotional accounting, the siphoning of his trust for her second life, she still believed she was unforgettable. She didn't understand that some betrayals don't leave scars. They leave clean exits. Now she wanders through life like a ghost no one invites. Her charm sounds like manipulation. Her laughter lands hollow. Every mirror shows her what she was, and every reflection stares back like a stranger. He didn't have to destroy her. He just stopped holding her up, and she collapsed under the weight of her own fiction. So now she waits. For a response. For a word. For a man who doesn't even replay her name in his mind anymore. And that's where it ends. Thanks for listening. Let me know where you're watching from, and what you would have done if it were your wife.